Hi everybody. In this lesson, we're going to go ahead and do a front-end preview. So what we need here is Visual Studio Code, because that's what we've been using throughout these lessons so far. And if you haven't downloaded Visual Studio Code yet, go ahead and go to code.visualstudio.com and then download the appropriate installer for your operating system. And we're going to pretty much use it vanilla. There's going to be one thing we install here, and what we're going to do is click on this little button here, which is the extensions button. And then when we open that, we're going to install the live HTML and JS previewer version 2. That's not an often used preview, but the one that is used a lot doesn't actually work anymore, this one right here. So we're going to take the next version of that one. So you have to scroll down a little bit to get there. And it's this one right here. So it looks the same as the other one. It's just got, you'll see it over here, the V2 on it. And that's the one we want there. So we're just going to click on that, and then we're going to install it. And so when that's all done, it's installing. Then we're going to do some HTML coding in the editor here. And we don't have to leave the editor to see what it's going to look like, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's go ahead and close that window. We don't need it. So now we're back in the raw Visual Studio Code editor. We can open this to get some things open. There's really nothing that we want to open. We're just going to go ahead and let's close that. And then just hit Command N or Control N to get a new document up. And one of the things I like to do is I just go ahead and type what I want the file name to be. And if you hit Save there, it puts it in as Save As because it's the first thing you typed in. So then I'm just going to save that to anywhere. It doesn't really matter where it goes. And now what I've got is an HTML document. And so having it with this HTML extension, now Visual Studio Code is going to automatically detect that it's HTML, and it's going to help me type. So we'll have more detailed lessons on how to make an HTML page, but this is a preview. So I'm going to show you how to make an HTML page, and we'll get more into what the tags are and how they all work in more detail in later lessons. But let's go ahead and start off with the basics. So we're going to make a minimum page, and then we're just going to kind of play with it a little bit to preview how this all works. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is let's try and open that previewer. So what I'm going to hit is, I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to hit Command-Shift-P, and that brings up the palette. And then if I type side preview, I see this, right? And if I click on that, it gives me a live preview. So if I go ahead and type something in that HTML index HTML page like hello, gotta spell it right, you'll see that it shows up over here. And that's not HTML, this is just text, but HTML will allow you to do that. All right, so what I'm going to do though is show you how to get that up if it's not there. So you can't see my menu right now, but if I hit the file, let's see, which one is it, so I can tell you which one to hit. So what you're going to do is go to your view menu up on the top, and you can't see that, and then there's a command palette. And I believe you can even right click in here and get the command palette right there. So that might be even easier. So then you just go ahead and command palette, and then you can just type side. And so it remembered what we used last time. So side preview, and it'll get us to here. So let's go ahead and open that up. All right, it's blank right now because we have nothing over here. Now the first thing you want to do for your HTML page is give it a doc type. And see how it's helping us here. That's nice. So doc type HTML, that's pretty much what they use nowadays. It really just helps your page behave better. In the old days, the browsers used to have different versions of HTML that they supported. So it would behave differently depending on what version you put in here. But now it's just pretty much doc type HTML. It's kind of required for your page to behave properly. So you always want to start off your HTML document with one of those. And then it's an HTML document. Now these are tags. So an HTML document is composed of elements. So this is a doc type element. And elements start with the greater than or the less than sign, and then end with the greater than sign. And then there's sometimes end tags. So this is actually considered a tag if it's inside of the brackets like that. So an HTML tag or element looks like this. So the tag is this HTML, so it's inside of the greater than less than sign. An element is a begin and end, so an element has things inside of it. So in the case of HTML, this is the container element for an HTML page. So anything in between here is considered the HTML page. All right, and so we have HTML there. Now, some of the things that are necessary, which we won't see here, but in a browser we will. You have a head. So your HTML will have a head, which is where you put things that aren't inside of the body. So these things aren't displayed in here. So it's kind of the header, and it has things in it. Now, you want a title inside of your header. And notice how it's helping. So it's got the title tag and the end title tag. And the end title tag has this little / in it, and that's what ends tag. Now, not all HTML elements need end tags. Some of them don't. Input is one in particular, and we'll get into that in later lessons. But so you want a title, and what happens with your title is it shows up on the browser tab. Now, we're not using a browser here, but if I go ahead and do this, I right-click and say Open in Browser. Let's see if we get one. It shows up here. See how it says hello? Let me close some of these so we can see this better. It's still not enough. Here, let me close a bunch of them. Hold on. These are from the previous lessons. Let's make it so we could actually see the title on that one. I should have actually closed all these before. And let's see. Keep closing. Keep closing. All right, now there it is. So that's what the title does. So if we go ahead and go back here and change the title, and we'll just refresh that, and you'll see that that's the title. So that's what that's for. So it shows up in the tab. Now, if it was on a browser that didn't use tabs, then it would show up as the title on the window. All right, so that's how that works. And we don't need to go back to the browser here because we have this, but this doesn't show the title, so I want to show you that. All right, so now a title is one thing that's in there, and there's other things that would go in here. Let's go ahead and move on, though, and we'll get into something else that could come in here when we talk about other things. So let's see. So there's a head. So an HTML will have a head, and it'll have a body. So body is the thing that does show up. So right now there's nothing in the body, but it's a container for anything that does show up in the body. So this is an H1, which is a header, and it's kind of like the larger font title fonts in a book, right? So let's do this one is large header. Let's call it large title, and we'll use uppercase because that's, so there's a large one. Let's call it header. All right, and so that's a large one, and so the numbers go down or up, but they get smaller. So H1 is the first one, so that's a 1, and then a 2, see it's getting smaller, and then a 3 is even smaller, and it goes up to, I think, 6. I don't know if 7 will do anything, but let's try 6. So we're going to skip all the way to 6 and see what that looks like. Much smaller. And then let's try a 7. I don't know if it'll do anything. What I know of is it goes up to 6, but there could very well be 7. It might just go on indefinitely for all I know. I'm going to say no. This looks like it just went regular text. It didn't know what to do with that. All right, so we've got those headers there, and then there's other HTML elements. Now notice these had open and close. Now an input element is the thing that you can type in, right? You've seen those on forms. And so that's the basic thing. It doesn't have an end. So even Visual Studio Code is not helping me put that end in there. I could type something like that maybe, and I'd have to try and trick Visual Studio Code into keeping it, but it has no effect. It doesn't actually do anything, and to put anything in between these elements does no good. It's just going to put it on the outside because it's not a container element. An input is just an input element. So how you put things in an input element is you put value here, and you can put things in text. And now you see that this has that initial value, and then I can change it. So that's how that works. Now there's different types of inputs. And remember, this is a preview. We will get into the more detailed things later on. Now, what these things are, so here's the tag, right? This H6 is a tag, and this input's a tag. This value is an attribute. So this is the value attribute, and it always has whatever the attribute name is, and there's a few things that are always present on an HTML tag, and then certain tags have certain other attributes. And then double quotes, and then the actual value. So this is a value attribute on an input. There's also other things. So like this one could be type equals text, because we're typing text. So that doesn't actually change it because text is the default. So that's staying that way. Let's do a different type of input. Let's do on this one. So notice I pasted it so it's the same, but let's go ahead and get rid of text, and let's call this type button. If I type it right, it'll work. Otherwise, it'll take the default. Now this is a button, and I can click it. It doesn't do anything yet. And let's just go ahead and call it button. So now we've got a button. So that's how you control inputs. Also, other attributes are ID, which is common. And that's how you would refer to it in JavaScript. So you could actually call this one by ID. So we could just call this button ID. And that's how we could actually access it. Now, these are all, HTML is all about presentation, right? And so that's how we present. It's markup, so we can present the content that we want to show. Now, there's things to make it interactive, and this would be a script tag. And the script tag is JavaScript. And then we can do other things to access these elements and manipulate them. So I can do document get element by ID, and you would have seen this on our front end course, which is coming. That's part of this one. In our Java crash course, we actually did some front end work, because if you do back end, at some point, I mean, you might not have to deal with the front end, but it does help you to know about the front end. So we did a little bit of that there. And then on the front end, you don't have to do back end, but it kind of helps if you do know a little bit about the back end. So we'll probably do a little bit of that in this basically, I think it's going to be called a front end crash course, where we'll cover HTML, CSS, so styling, JavaScript, and a little bit of back end. And we'll do Bootstrap as well for styling, so it automatically is responsive on a phone or a tablet or a computer. So how this works is we're going to get this by ID. So now I can get the button ID. So this is going to give me, and we'll go through script later, but this is a variable type, and there's other kinds of types since ES5, I think. ECMAScript 5 or ECMAScript 6 are the more recent versions. There's different types of variables too now. All right, so let's just call this one button, and we should be able to get that by logging it out. Now, this preview over here doesn't do anything with logs and stuff. So what we're going to do here is we'll just use that other browser that we did before. So let's go open in HTML and see if it actually does anything. So same rendering, and if we inspect here, let's see if we get our console up and see how it printed out the button. So we could have this thing actually do some things for us. So let's do alert. So alert is a type of command for JavaScript, and let's have it give us our button. I actually don't know what to do here, so let's say get attribute, and let's get this by name. Let's see what the type is. That has to be in quotes. All right, so in theory, what that's going to print out, it's going to open a pop-up window, and it's going to tell us what type this button is, and it should tell us button. All right, so let's go ahead and refresh this page, and it says it's a button, so that worked. So those are some things that you could do with HTML, and you could do other things as well. Let's do something like this. We've got the button, so let's change its value, which is going to, oops, not that. And value might not even be a thing, so I might be doing this wrong, but let's see if it works. Let's change it to new button. Okay, that is the way it works. So that's there. So I can change it here. So you notice I'm programmatically changing it now instead of doing it another way. So that's how we use JavaScript to manipulate things, and we can access them in various ways, and this is probably a pretty common one. It makes it kind of simple. Okay, so what are some other things to talk about in here? How about styling? All right, so we've got, let's go ahead and do a paragraph tag, and we'll talk more about the tags later, but these are the ones that you use commonly. So P is for paragraph, and notice it automatically did a beginning and end for me. So let's go ahead and type this is my first paragraph. All right, so now we've got something here. One of the things we can do is let's go ahead and make it italic. So style is another attribute, and that gives us the ability to style things. So let's do font, and it's nice that Visual Studio Code's helping us. So font style, and let's make it italic. And you notice now everything's leaned to the right on the top. All right, and so this is one way to style a tag, but the more common way these days to style it is to use a style sheet. A style sheet's usually a separate file that you use a link to, but we're just going to go ahead and inline our style here in our header, and we can start a style tag. And this gets us to CSS. Now we've got CSS in our HTML. And so I can style all of my paragraphs. That's with the P, so this is the tag here, and then you can get into other things like class, which I'll show you in a second. And then I can paste that there, and then I can say I want the font weight, our font style, to be italic, so it's still there, right? And now I can say font weight, I want bold. And now you see it's bold. And then I could get rid of the italic one, and now it's just bold. I could also change the size. Font optional, that's funny. Let's do size, and let's make it 24 points. And now it gets big. So now I'm able to manipulate the way that it looks by changing its style. So let's do a color, and this will be the last one we do. Let's make it red. So that's another thing we could do with HTML. And typically what you would have these in is a link tag, and it would be an external CSS file, something like this, style.css. If we actually had, and then all I do is create a new file and put this in it. Well, we might as well do it since we're here. I don't know if this preview will get it though, so let's try it. All right, so let's get rid of this. I just copied the in part of that. So I'm going to start a new file, and I'm going to call it style.css. And let's see if it works. Okay, and if we come back over to our HTML page and save, it looks like it might not be grabbing it. And I could actually have this wrong, but maybe I... So that's our style. Maybe this doesn't pick it up, so let's try it in this browser. What did we do in the style? I could be doing this wrong. So if you don't know what's going on, you could always do this. I like MDN. That's Mozilla Developer Network. And let's do style sheet tag. I don't know what to call it, so I just called it that. And let's see how it actually does it. See if they tell us that. All right, so that's doing the style way. We want it to actually have the other way. That's the style tag. So let's try link style sheet, and let's see if that gives us a tag for that. So it's a link attribute. Oh, it's href is what I need to change that to, and then the rel. I don't know what rel stands for. Maybe they'll tell us in here. Rel. Yeah, I still don't know. Maybe it'll tell us down here. Okay, well, it's not important right now. Just you put it in there so you know what it is. So it's href is what we need here. So let's go ahead and change this to href and put the rel equals style sheet. All right, and let's see if it picks it up now. It doesn't look like it's picking it up there. And we definitely have some stuff in here. So let's see. Let's try the browser. Okay, there it is. So the other thing's not doing the relative links. So here's our text with the large size and red. So that's working the way we expect. So this preview is not working the way I would have expected it to work, which is unfortunate. So it's not as live preview-ish as we would think. So we could actually come back and do this for now. So that way we can keep it simple. And maybe we'll use the browser for the rest of the lessons. So now we've got this in here. Oh, and I have to put it inside of a style tag. And you notice this, it's really kind of simple. The tags do a specific thing, and once you know what they do, you just go ahead and start typing them in, and you get them in there, and they show up. And so HTML pages are actually quite simple. There's not really a lot to learn about them. Layout is the most important thing, I would say, to learn, and we'll get into that later in the lessons. That should probably do it for this preview. And thanks for watching, and see you in the lessons.